And Juana Summers. So in the midst of all this hyper-partisanship, we had two developments on Capitol Hill this week that reflected bipartisanship, something that we don't see all that often. We had the opioid bill, and we had the bipartisan leadership on Iran, reconsidering Iran sanctions. Tell us what happened on with respect to the opioid bill, what that was all about, and why did we see such bipartisan support for that? Was it 94 to 1 or something?
94 to 1 and a very divided Congress.
Yeah.
That's about as good as it gets. Just one no vote against that bill. This is a bill that would help create grant programs for state and local governments to improve education and treatments for drug abuse. It provides for a broad swath of addicts, and it just shows just how seriously politicians are coming around and taking what's really become a public health crisis in this country. I was looking at the facts and figures when that bill passed in New Hampshire, one of the states where this has really played center stage, even in the presidential race. More than one person a day dies of an opioid overdose. In Ohio, they say there's one death every 3 hours. This is something that for folks between 25 to 64, more people die of these overdoses than die in car crashes. So it's a really big deal, and it's in the middle of a primary season that's been really rough and messy. It's been nice to see Congress getting serious about it. All that said, this is a bill that still has to pass the Republican-controlled House, and so far there have been few indications from lawmakers as to whether or not it can actually make it out the door. But it's something that you saw Republicans and Democrats in the Senate come together on and say that this stops now, that we have to start taking seriously these issues. States across the country and their local governments have done a number of treatment avenues and whatnot, but seeing a first federal push from the government. This is also something the Obama administration has talked about, and that the president had said, I think back in February, that he was going to ask Congress for more money to devote towards these issues and to make sure that these deaths can stop. So it'll be interesting to see if that bill is able to make it out of the gate. This issue's played center stage on the presidential race as well, with a number of former presidential candidates, Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina, Chris Christie, coming out and forcefully and personally speaking about the impacts of addiction on their own life and their children's lives.
Well, and there's still some funding issues attached to that consideration, isn't there? Yeah.
There absolutely are. This is a very, very broad policy bill, and it would have a lot of implications, but it's also rather expensive. So figuring out how to fund it is going to be the linchpin, I think, for seeing if it can be passed in the House.
Jerry, the other bill that I mentioned, or it's not actually